So, guys, this is the first time I'm using my voice to do a video essay on my YouTube channel. I'm actually too shy to reveal my voice to the world because I am a private person and I would prefer to keep my privacy to myself. I don't have the confidence to reveal my voice to anyone outside my family or my friends in my home country. But I decided to give it a try thanks to a video essay I made on my backup YouTube channel. But as long as I do not gain popularity in the YouTube community, I personally hate being famous. Anyways, this topic is about a list of well written characters that were butchered, ruined, or mischaracterized in different adaptations or reboots. When a book or a comic is adapted into a TV show or film, there are certain elements that will probably get lost in translation. That includes the characters themselves. It's always frustrating when your favorite fictional character is butchered, whether the producers hated them or just don't understand what made them so interesting. Or when the source material gets a reboot, the writers will make some bad changes to our beloved characters. I would be excluding characters that were ruined in sequels or TV seasons, though. Here are the victims of character assassination. Let's begin. Velma Dinkley from the Scooby-Doo franchise. Mindy Kaling's Velma is a clear example of how an iconic character is ruined in a horrible reboot or adaptation. As someone who grew up watching the Scooby-Doo films and shows, the franchise holds a special place in my heart, and Velma is an important member of the Scooby Gang and one of the most memorable cartoon characters I have ever seen. Of course, the franchise would never be the same without Velma or any of the Scooby characters. Everything was great until Mindy Kaling showed up all of a sudden. Warner Brothers would later greenlight a Scooby-Doo spin-off featuring Velma as the protagonist. While a Velma spin-off is a great idea on paper, the biggest problem is Mindy Kaling herself, as she was the executive producer of Velma 2023. When the show was released on HBO Max, things started to get really ugly. Velma 2023 is not only one of the worst shows ever made, but also a complete insult to the Scooby-Doo franchise. The iconic characters are butchered, and Scooby is nowhere to be seen, but Velma gets the worst treatment, so she is flanderized beyond recognition. Mindy Kaling's Velma is nothing like the original character. Instead of seeing the intelligent and friendly teenage girl we know and love, Velma is turned into a selfish, hypocritical, and self centered human being. It does not help that she is also a self insert of Mindy Kaling herself, due to Velma bearing a resemblance to the actual creator, so it made things a lot more cringeworthy. Thanks a lot, Mindy, for ruining one of our favorite characters. Grandpa Joe from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Grandpa Joe was a lot more moralistic and kind hearted in the original novel that I read back in fifth grade. I know that Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory 1971 is a cult classic, but I always have more attachment to Roald Dahl's original novel and Tim Burton's 2005 adaptation that introduced me to the story in the first place. While the 1971 film adaptation has its merits, I am not a huge fan of their version of Grandpa Joe. This old dude is nothing like the character I know in the book. I was indeed surprised that the audience hated him until I realized that he was bastardized in the 1971 film. He pushes his grandson Charlie to break the rules and causes a lot of trouble in the chocolate factory. None of these moments happen in the original novel. Because the film's script went through a full rewrite, adding a lot of changes to the source material and Grandpa Joe's character assassination being one of them, it's no surprise that Roald Dahl hated the 1971 adaptation and even refuses to allow the film studios to produce a film version of The Great Glass Elevator, a sequel to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Since I read the book where Joe was a more likable human being, I am genuinely disappointed with the way the screenwriters ruined his reputation as a character in his 1971 film. Satomi Murano from Parasite. For those who watched my Parasite video essays, you guys probably know that I am not a huge fan of its 2014 anime adaptation. It's rare to see well written manga characters that are also ruined in an anime adaptation. Like Velma Dinkley, Satomi Murano is another character who is flanderized beyond recognition, thanks to Madhouse screenwriters and producers who worked on the 2014 anime adaptation of Parasite. When I read more of the manga and properly watched the anime, I finally realized that the screenwriters did something wrong with her character, especially how they mangled her dialogue in the 2014 anime. In the original manga, Satomi Murano has a symbolic role in the story and why she is important to the themes of the manga. Her defining character trait is her keen perception. Underneath her goofy and playful demeanor, Murano is an intuitive, observant, and highly perceptive individual who looks through someone's facade and senses something is deeply wrong with her loved ones. That's why she became suspicious towards Shinichi, who was not being himself anymore. When Shinichi returned as a changed person, Murano was appalled by his attitude when she saw him throw a dead puppy in a trash can and refused to open up to her, to save her from Miki, who threatened to kill Murano. While Satomi was unaware of Miki's existence, she knew very well that her boyfriend was hiding a big secret from her. So yeah, guys, Satomi's actions were completely justified, mostly in the manga, since Shinichi lied to his girlfriend several times but did not succeed to deceive her. The quote, "Are you really Shinichi?" has more substance and importance in the manga. Initially, it was a joke made by Satomi, but eventually became very real when Shinichi returned as a new person, becoming very cold and apathetic, and Satomi was genuinely bothered by his seemingly sociopathic behavior. Unfortunately, it was ruined by the anime screenwriters. As a result, the quote loses its substance, and Satomi's character got lost in translation in the 2014 anime, partly because of how the screenwriters made her dialogue repetitive and tiresome. Satomi's dialogue was less repetitive and more interesting in the original manga, where her character was handled with more care. Kana Hanazawa's voice performance also suffered from a terrible script and poor direction. It does not help that Satomi is also demure in the 2014 anime, unlike her manga counterpart who had a more active personality: quirky, goofy, independent, forceful, and feisty. The screenwriters also altered some of the scenes in the anime where she was painted in a bad light, especially that one scene from episode 13. Because of the unforgivable bastardization of Satomi Murano's characterization, I slowly grew to despise Madhouse's Parasite and lost all my admiration for the 2014 anime adaptation. Her character assassination is the sole reason I cannot recommend this anime to anyone. Mulan from Disney's Mulan. I could write down an entire essay on how much I despise the live action remake of Disney's Mulan. It is a complete dishonor to a great animated film with a well developed female lead who is also a great role model for children. As a huge fan of the original animated film, Mulan is one of my favorite female protagonists, and I was dissatisfied with the way she was portrayed in the live action remake. Not only did the writers make terrible changes to the story, such as replacing Mushu and Li Shang with random nobodies, but they also ruined Mulan's entire character development. In the 2020 film, Mulan is drastically different from her original counterpart. She is a martial arts prodigy with chi powers and already knows how to fight against her opponents, mainly because she is special. Ironically, Disney wanted to make this live action remake more grounded in the animated film, yet they ended up creating a Mary Sue with no genuine human flaws. It's even worse when Mulan remained expressionless for the majority of the movie because of her actress, who delivered a rather wooden performance, making her more of a robot than a human being with real emotions. In the animated film, Mulan isn't some special human being with chi powers. She starts off as a clumsy but ordinary young woman with no fighting experience until her father is recruited by the army to save China from the Hans. Because of his age, he was too old to fight against the Hans, and Mulan was worried he would get killed on the battlefield. To save his life, she took his place as a Chinese soldier, disguised herself as a man, and traveled to the army camp where she met Li Shang and three fellow soldiers who were unaware of her true identity. Initially, Mulan had a rough start as a rookie soldier, but she was determined to reach her goals. Instead of leaving the camp, Mulan continuously trains with her fellow soldiers, becoming a stronger and more fierce fighter. In the end, she saved not only the emperor's life but also the people of China from the Hans. This is what I call genuine character development. It's thanks to hard work that Mulan becomes a strong woman who slowly learns how to fight on her own. It's so upsetting that Disney ended up ruining those characters in their horrible live action remakes. Leon S. Kennedy from Resident Evil. Where do I even begin with the live action adaptation that kept ruining the Resident Evil source material and disrespecting its iconic characters? Paul W. S. Anderson made his own Resident Evil cinematic universe where his Mary Sue OC is the main character, stealing the protagonist's role from the actual heroes of the franchise as well as turning them into incompetent sidekicks who would be killed off in the later installments. Welcome to Raccoon City tries to break the curse but ends up creating the same mistakes. Netflix's Resident Evil 2020 was the last straw for me, and I do not want to see another live action adaptation that could ruin the franchise again. Leon S. Kennedy was mischaracterized twice in the live action adaptations. He is a charming and confident individual who is one of the most well liked heroes in the franchise. Starting off as a rookie cop who meets up with Claire Redfield in Raccoon City, he and Claire worked together to fight against the zombie. After the destruction of Raccoon City, he eventually becomes a special agent and was sent on a mission to save the president's daughter from an evil cult in Resident Evil 4, which is arguably the best entry in the franchise. It was indeed disappointing to see the way he was portrayed in two terrible live action films because the writers got everything wrong about his characterization or didn't understand what made him likable in the first place. In Resident Evil Retribution, he is depicted as the commander of his rescue team who is sent on a mission to find Alice and Ada. Here's the problem with Anderson's version of Leon. He does not have the complete essence of his game counterpart. He, his actor does not look suitable to play Leon, and his deep voice does not match his personality. He looks more like a cosplay of Leon. There's also an out of character moment where Leon puts his hand on Ada's bare leg, which makes him more of a weird simp than a cool Chad. This is not how Leon behaves towards Ada. He may have feelings for her, but he would never simp for her like that in a game. I don't know why fans act like Anderson's Leon is better than the one in Welcome to Raccoon City, when Anderson's Leon is depicted as a creep who touches Ada's leg without her consent. Welcome to Raccoon City's version of Leon S. Kennedy is slightly better than the one from Anderson's cinematic universe, but the filmmakers got his personality wrong again in this 2021 adaptation, and this is not the Leon we know and love. As I said before, Leon is a cool, confident, charming individual in the games. But Welcome to Raccoon City's Leon is depicted as more of a bumbling fool with a reckless attitude. His only good moment is when he blasts a bazooka right at Birkin, who transforms into a monstrous zombie. But still, he was awfully mischaracterized in most of the movie. I do not blame his new actor for his performance as Leon S. Kennedy. The problem is with the terrible script and the film director, who failed to understand what made Leon so consistently likable to people who played the game. Albert Wesker from Resident Evil. Albert Wesker is another Resident Evil character who got lost in translation when the games were adapted into movies, and he was done dirty by both Paul W. S. Anderson and Johannes Roberts because they never understood the core of his character or what made him a compelling and threatening antagonist in the later games. In the first installment, Albert Wesker was the leader of the STARS Alpha team from Raccoon City Police Department, as he and his squad go on a mission to investigate the disappearance of the Bravo team in the forest and eventually take refuge in Spencer Mansion when they stumble upon zombies who were eating the dead bodies of their comrades. The other members found out that there was a traitor among the Alpha team, and Wesker turned his back on his teammates after he revealed himself to be a triple agent working for Umbrella Corporation. In Code Veronica, he becomes a more powerful individual thanks to the mutant virus he injected into his own body, giving him new powers that would help him defeat or kill his opponents with ease. After slowly developing a god complex, Wesker turned his back on his creator, Oswald E. Spencer, and killed him by stabbing him in the chest. Wesker became the main antagonist in Resident Evil 5, where he created the Ouroboros virus to eradicate humanity on Earth. He is also not afraid to manipulate one of his companions to do his dirty work, especially when Exela is turned into Ouroboros Aheri and Wesker sees no further use for her. He was also the one who turned Jill Valentine into his puppet to fight against Shiva Alomar and Chris Redfield, her best friend and partner. This is what makes him different from his movie counterparts, because Wesker is a villain who works for no one but himself, and he uses other people to achieve his own goals. In the films, Anderson's Albert Wesker is depicted as a henchman who strongly remains loyal to Alexander, Isaac, and Umbrella Corporation, and he never turned his back on them, which misses the point of his character. Sean Roberts looked more like a shallow cosplay of Wesker instead of embodying his character. Anderson also botched his rivalry with Chris Redfield, especially in that one scene where he told Chris and Claire that they've become an inconvenience to him, which narratively made no sense in the context of the films. In the games, Wesker had a stronger connection with Chris as both of them worked for STARS prior to the events of Resident Evil 1. Wesker chose to betray his supposed friends and even fought against Chris numerous times in Code Veronica and Resident Evil 5. Anderson's Wesker also had one of the lamest movie death scenes I've seen. He was fatally wounded by a door that chopped his left foot. That's right, guys. Wesker was killed by a door, unlike his game counterpart, who injected the Ouroboros virus into his body and transformed into a monster hell-bent on murdering Chris and Shiva until the duo eventually launched a bazooka at their enemy, putting an end to his reign of terror. Welcome to Raccoon City's version of Albert Wesker isn't great either because he's not the same badass villain we know in the games. Johannes Roberts thought of making Wesker a more conflicted human being who does not want to put innocent lives at risk. This is what erases the essence and charm of his character. While the concept of a conflicted human being is good on paper, that didn't work for Wesker, and the filmmakers end up turning him into a lame and confusing character. So we do not know if he's a good guy or a bad guy, and welcome to Raccoon City. That's the end of the video. I didn't add much characters on this video. That's all I can say. Which character do you think was done dirty by the producers? Let me know in the comment section.